Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Sabal?
Here.
Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Perrin?
Here, and just one announcement that board members, please speak into the mics, because I guess people are having a hard time understanding the comments and the conversation, and it's important that they do. The other thing too is, are we having problems still, or are there problems with the telephonic connection with those people?
No.
They're easily understandable. Okay, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we have two.
Okay, why don't you read those
Okay.
out?
Let's see. And this is from Cesar Quijada, Douglas resident and employee of the district. I request permission to address the governing board on the following item on the agenda. Good afternoon, members of the board and administrators. I would like to share my thoughts on the upcoming changes for the instruction method. I agree that we must move toward a hybrid model, but would like everyone to consider this hard transition for students and teachers. Currently, students are receiving 2 half-days of classroom instruction via online, and I feel jumping into a hybrid model may be detrimental to them. Similarly, our teachers must adapt to a new way of teaching, and the amount of work it may take should not be minimized. I would like to have you consider transitioning into a fully online where students can attend online classes 4 days a week and extend the instructional class time for each period to whatever feels best. An example is 40 minutes. This will help students gain the momentum needed and within a month move forward with a full day online, or other options may be discussed. If and when we go on to a hybrid model, a recommendation would be to have A and B days in which students attend school on their designated days, and when they are not attending school, they would still be attending all classes via online. This would allow teachers not to reteach the same lesson and students to receive the information without having to include a separate online course. I feel starting a full online schedule will help continue to fight the spread. I feel the increase in days and time would make up for much of the academic concerns that were brought up in the previous meeting. I provide this to you as my professional and personal experience and hope you can consider my suggestions. If the results of this meeting move toward a hybrid model without a transition, I would suggest parents consider keeping their children online if possible, and if there is a need, you can always talk to your school and grade administrators to help find the correct accommodations for your children. Thank you and hope everyone continues with good health. The next public comment is from Connie Grijalva, and she is one of our school nurses and a resident of Douglas. Dear members of the board, superintendent, the following is to address the possible lift of restrictions in our Douglas school system and allowing class to resume normally or in a hybrid schedule. I have been a registered nurse for 7 years with DUSD and an RN for the state of Arizona for almost 20 years. I have practiced as an RN in various different fields of nursing. In the years that I have worked for DUSD, I have worked in elementary schools and both junior highs. I have seen so many students sick when many illness, both chronic and acute. I have assessed students in my office with a communicable disease. Parents still send them to school in that condition without the consideration of others. In this unfortunate year of 2020, nothing has changed. Although we have limited number of students physically on site, we have had our share of scares. I have had a couple students sent to school with cold symptoms, which included sore throat, rise of temperature, body aches, coughs. When asking students if parents knew they were not feeling well, students confirmed. Upon me calling parents, they reluctantly agreed that they also knew their child was not feeling well and still sent them to school. Upon me calling parents for a particular child, mother said to me, "What should I have done?" Really? Mrs. Samaniego addressed this before we allowed students to physically attend school. It was made aware to parents that they have a responsibility to not send kids that are sick to school. This particular parent is a teacher in Douglas, but not within DUSD. I explained that he should have stayed home and she could have excused him and allowed him to continue doing his work from home until students felt better and knew that what we were dealing with. I also had a student 2 weeks later feeling ill as well. Upon my assessment, he revealed that father had been ill as well and stated he is waiting for results. I asked for COVID results. The student responded with a yes. I informed the student he should not have come to school until a negative result would have been given. This was also informed to one of the guardians. In other schools, students were sent sick and went to the health office in tears because they felt so bad. When asked why they were in school, the child responded that mom had to go to Sierra Vista and did not want the student to inform us that they were sick. So how is this possible? Why? We agreed to provide a safe environment for students with the understanding that parents would keep students home if ill. If a student with the parent who was waiting for results would have had a positive test, it would have put 4 of us staff in a 14-day isolation because we dealt with the student. I have a child and husband with a chronic illness. They both have type 1 diabetes. My mom also lives with us, has liver problems. My 83-year-old uncle also lives with us and has coronary artery disease. So my children are at home because I do not believe it is safe for them to be physically at school. But yet, I could have exposed my entire household because of one irresponsible parent. I have to remind students several times to put on their mask correctly while at lunchtime or recess at my school. I continue to do that every single day. I don't believe that there has been a day where I can say every student physically present has worn their mask appropriately at all times. Even though there are staff watching students, this was not addressed by them until I went and addressed it myself. With all due respect, members of the board, superintendent, assistant superintendent, this COVID-19 virus is still out there. It has not changed. The reason we have not seen cases rise here is because of the social distancing and have the majority of students at home. Just this morning, Johnson & Johnson made a statement in which their vaccine trials had come to a stop due to an unexplained illness in their control group. This is the second vaccine that has failed. The minute we allow more students and we continue to have them physically present at the school, it will be a matter of time for us to have cases and thus a mortality. Masks help, but it is social distancing keeping COVID-19 temporarily at bay. There are families in our community testing positive for COVID-19 who have children in our district. Now with the flu season just around the corner, a bigger crisis is coming. Cases all over the world are increasing: China, Italy, France. There have been better precautions in those places than we have and are seeing cases rise. We will be no different. The world has changed and we must adapt to it, which means continued distance learning for all students to allow for social distancing to take place. I implore you to please listen to those of us who are working face-to-face with students. Let us, our district, be the example of the correct thing to do. Please, it's a matter of time. That is it. Sincerely, respectfully, Connie.
Okay, we thank.
Who was that?
Connie Grijalva, she's a nurse at our district.
Item 2A, discussion action on the approval of fiscal year 2019-20 Douglas Unified School District 27 annual financial report. Mr. Soto.
Good afternoon, Board President, Board members. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for letting me extend or have a special board meeting for this. We were having some issues with the software. I'm trying to gather all of the numbers and everything. So here's the annual financial report for the school year 2019-2020, closing officially our books for this past school year. I believe the auditors are going to be here next week to actually perform the second part of the audit and finalize the audit for last year. So I'll keep you posted on that one too. Any questions you might have after looking at the report? Like I said, it's just closing the books for last school year. There's no issues. So any questions you might have at this point?
Members of the board, I think we should take advantage of this situation, especially because Sonia's here. And she's the one with all the information, actually.
She's not. But thanks to Sonia, yes.
Did she leave? Oh, I thought she was
Yes,
here.
no.
She was here earlier.
Yeah.
Anyway, members of the board, do you have any questions?
Mr. President, I just had one comment that you mentioned that we don't have any outstanding issues. Did we come across any glaring shortfalls during the past year? Anything that sticks out? I guess that's kind of an open question.
Right. Well, I mean, financially, I mean, we always have situations and issues coming up, but again, we're at a position right now, the district, that is very financially stable. That we have enough to kind of cover those issues that arise. But at top of my head, I mean, I don't remember any one that sticks out. One thing to keep in mind for next year's annual financial report, that is going to include all of those monies that we're getting from the SFB for the construction of the high school that we have to report. And we know we had that at the budget adoption when we had to disclose that amount. But because the project is not finalized, I mean, that's something that we have to include for the next annual financial report. But no, I mean, everything is as expected. Actually, it was a little better. We were planning or thinking that we were going to have a good carryover, but that is actually better. So in the end, we got more than what we expected. And that's going to help us tremendously within this year, that we're having some issues right now with funding and not knowing what decision you're going to make. But we can talk about that later on the next topic if you want. But there's a good financial gain on that carryover that we can, apply it for this present school year.
Thank you.
Members of the board, any other questions?
And you never had to use the line of credit?
No, sir.
Mr. Ramos or Mr. Sabal, you have any questions of Mr. Soto regarding?
Yes, I have one for Mr. Soto. Just give me a little clarification on line 46, the $8,099,894.
Line 46 on page 1 of 9.
Yes, page 1 of 9.
And what's the amount you say? Sorry.
Oh, he said 8 million, but it's actually 8.
99,894.
Okay.
Yes, a little clarification to that, because my sheet's kind of covered up here and I can't read what it says. It has somebody typing on it.
Oh, it is just ending fund balance, line 42 minus line 45. It's just basically the bottom line number.
So that's the remaining balance.
Yes, for the M&O portion, yes.
Okay.
Is that it, Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. While you're talking about the budget, let's get some clarification on
Sure.
the CARE money. And have you spent all that, and for all those incidental or those things that are deemed necessary because of what we're going through? And have you had to get into the M&O for any of that? I guess the first question will answer that question. The second one, have you spent all the CARE money?
No, I haven't. No, we haven't. If you remember, we got awarded 1.9 million of the CARES monies. Part of that was given to the private school. So I'm just counting with 1.8. So far, we have spent a little bit close to $900,000 out of that, especially for the devices that we had to purchase for technology to provide the students with devices, some PPE and some wipes and all of the disinfectants for the sites. Also, and not sure if you remember, but the state is giving us another grant, the Enrollment Stabilization grant, which we applied. We already got a letter saying that we're going to get awarded. We don't know how much yet, but those monies, they need to be spent by December. So we're gonna get a number in November and then only a month to spend. So what we're planning on doing is journaling all of those expenditures that we did on the CARES Act monies and do it on this new grant. So we'll be done in December, and then we'll still have On the CARES monies, we still have until September of 2021 to spend those monies. So, like I said, I'm hoping, not knowing how much we're gonna get from the state, but I'm thinking it's gonna be roughly around 500,000 at least, and we spend only close to 900. So we're only gonna be spending 400,000 out of the CARES Act money. So we still have a cushion. Once we know for sure, not sure if it's gonna be ready for the November meeting, but I'll give you an update on that grant and see, because at this point I don't know how much money we're gonna get from the state on that specific
So in the
grant.
scheme of things, the regular budget, notwithstanding the care money, hasn't been tapped at all
hasn't.
for anything regarding the COVID.
Correct.
So that's important, because all of those unexpected expenses are being covered there.
Yes, sir.
And adequately. I mean, so whatever the board decides to do today, if the board goes along with the hybrid, then you've got in place everything you need to fulfill what all of the mandates are regarding that, correct?
Yes, sir. We do.
Okay. All right. Members of the board, any other questions? Dr. Gomez?
Yeah, Mr. Lorraine, I have a question. I have on page 4 of number 9, page 4, number 9. On the bottom it says an expenditure of 644,670. What is that expenditure?
It's line, I think he's talking about 16, and it's
Yes.
under unrestricted capital outlay.
That's not a one
Okay.
expenditure, Mr. Sabal. It's the sum of all of the expenditures we did out of that specific fund.
So
Does
you
that make
have
sense?
salaries, benefits.
Right.
Construction services and all of those.
Yeah. If you notice, there's. So it's a variety of expenditures, not just one specific one. Out of capital monies.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Dr.
a
Gomez,
question.
go ahead.
The grant that we might get from the state, now, does it have restrictions?
Not necessarily. This grant, well, just a little explanation of how the state end up with those monies. The federal government sent all of the states monies for CARES Act. So the state distributed to all of the school districts and all of the entities, but they kept a portion of it. So what the governor did now is just said, okay, I'm just going to release all of this extra funding from CARES available for the school districts that apply. So there's no restrictions per se, but they're asking not to probably use it for salaries, for permanent salaries. We could use like for subs, or we can use for, whatever you name it, but not to transfer or move any salaries that are right now being paid out of the M&O or some of the grants, to pay them from there, because eventually it's going to go away, and then
Yes.
you're
Yes,
going to have
okay.
an issue with those salaries. Yes.
Gotcha, thank you.
I would say that the other restriction is the fact that we do have to spend the portion coming out of the stabilization grant by December of this year. So transferring whatever we can of expenses from the CARES Act money that we have into that will take care of that requirement by December.
By December.
And that'll free up some of the funding from the other
From the
money.
CARES.
Gotcha.
I think the important thing that he said, though, about salaries, and I think maybe Dr. Gomez, part of that question was, can you use it for salaries? I don't think he specifically asked that, but that is a question. And you said you can use it for subs or anything, anybody you need to hire, but technically you can't supplant
Correct.
any salaries
Salaries.
for anybody that's already in there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the idea.
Or use it for any increases or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, any further discussion regarding that? Thank you, Mr. Soto.
Thank you.
2B, discussion action on the
President,
distant. I'm
I need
sorry.
a motion.
Motion.
I need a motion and a
Oh, you
vote.
need approval for that, correct? Yeah, I'm sorry, that's right.
I
I
move,
hope so after we all signed it. I'll entertain a motion to approve
I move to approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 DUSD number 27 annual financial report.
Second.
Second by Dr. Gomez. Any
That was Mr.
discussion?
Sabal.
Mr.
Mr.
Sabal.
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 Mr. Sabal.
Sabal? Well, I
got-
kind of heard it first there.
He beat me by a nose.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. Item 2, B, discussion action on the distance learning plan and hybrid model. Ms. Sonia.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President, board members, our student from DHS, Garrick, and members of the community and staff out there. Obviously, on your background information, you have a recap of what I presented last board meeting with the numbers of the surveys that we conducted. It gave you a little bit of what we are currently doing now, following an A and B schedule, where students are currently attending virtually with their teacher 2 days a week, and that applies for all schools. And then 3 days doing distance learning activities followed and prepared by their teachers. I mentioned to you last week that our teachers' responses on our survey demonstrated that 37.2% preferred to start the hybrid program and 62.8% online. Whereas our classified staff, almost 60% preferred the hybrid versus the 40% online. The parent survey, and for those that participated, 46% demonstrated they preferred hybrid and 54% online. I also did a student survey, which is the information that was missing from last time. And out of the students that answered, 52% preferred hybrid and 48% online. So I have a brief before I go on to anything else. Out of all the students, I had 1,607 students respond that actually filled out the survey. And then what we did with K through third grade, the teachers took a poll within their classroom just to get more additional information. We felt that those lower grades probably would have an easier time just sharing information with their staff. So based on all the information that I gathered from the students, some of their concerns regarding starting a hybrid plan would be obviously concerns of illness and safety. Students said it was easier, less homework, less stress over assignments, more time to complete assignments. They were unsure of some protocols like mask wearing and social distancing, so they preferred to stay online. Concerned students, they were concerned that students wouldn't adhere to the rules, including the mask wearing. Other students indicated that if we stay online, they would prefer 5 days of direct instruction with the teacher, even though it's online, versus the 2 that they are having now. Some students feel that there is a misconception of what the hybrid model is. They said some students believe they will still be on the computer watching the teachers on the hybrid plan, and that is definitely something I will attempt to clarify. Parents would prefer them to stay home or not living in town. So those are the ones that prefer the hybrid. Reasons for those that would like to start school under the hybrid model are that teachers will explain more and clarify their assignments. They will have more support from teachers. They can focus better. Instruction flows smoothly. They can easily ask questions and get help on the spot. They miss school. They miss their teachers and friends. They feel that they are not learning on the current model. Some kids answered that they're visual learners. And it says, the one last comment says, I am nowhere near responsible enough to do anything academically without a school setting. That was the last comment on the hybrid. So overall, the student concerns grouped together, saying getting support through emails did not help. So a lot of the teachers are communicating with their students via email during using the Google platform. They felt like teachers weren't there to help out right away. The communication was very difficult. The home internet cutting out caused them to miss out on some lessons. They felt like they were just doing assignments versus learning. Hard to focus and concentrate. Learning was very difficult. Being on the screen for long periods of time hurt their eyes and gave them headaches. Not understanding caused a lot of anxiety and stress. Felt there was no connection with the teacher. Students felt online is non-motivating. And squeezing a semester into 6 weeks, I felt like I wasn't learning anything. I just did work. So those are the concerns over the hybrid. I did have a town hall virtual meeting yesterday evening. I think I had over how many students? Over 100 students participate. I was very surprised and enthusiastic about the participation of our elementary students. Very vocal students, had lots of good questions. Middle school participation too. I was hoping more high school students would join in, and I'm not sure if they did, or they just weren't speaking or asking questions. I did just have 2 questions about the high school, and it was about what is graduation going to be this year, and that came from a parent that joined in the virtual session, and another one, I believe, asked how would the hybrid model work if we go, back to school? It was just 2 comments from high school students. And a lot of the elementary and middle school kids wanted to know, if we start hybrid, how is that going to work as far as the teachers teaching us? So if there's kids in the classroom, and then there's kids that are preferring to stay at home online, how is that going to work? Lots of questions from those that I think are choosing to stay online felt that, they wanted to make sure that they would get the same instruction as those that are attending school. And that is a valid concern. One of my biggest concerns, and I think for many teachers in our district, is that same concern. We don't want to leave anybody behind, and we don't want to say we're going to pay more attention to the in-person kids versus the online kids. And so that's a fact, that's a challenge, and it's something that probably every school district that is already in session under a hybrid model or traditional is dealing with right now, because under the executive order, we can give that option to parents to continue their kids online. The kids, some kids say, I want to get back. I miss my friends. I miss my teachers. Garrick, I don't know that you had an opportunity to talk to any DHS students yourself, because I really didn't hear from Douglas High School students as much as I would have wanted to.
So I did post the link for students to enter. I did encourage them. I had shown up, but I didn't make any comments. I didn't feel like there's anything I hadn't said. So but just in casual conversations with classmates and stuff, it seems like a lot of them do want to go back. There were concerns about the learning. Something that's been talked about is that so it's fair teaching to online students and in-person students. It would be students still on their computers, it's just at a school setting. And because of that, there are a lot of students that feel like it wouldn't be much of a difference, so what's the point? But then obviously there still is the difference of the environment and being somewhere where they could focus more, and also the social aspect would be there. But in terms of instruction, some of the students feel as if there's no point to changing it.
Okay. And I think that's clearly a misconception. So what would normally take place on a hybrid model? And many school districts are already following it, and some of them are doing it Monday and Tuesday. All kids that have a last name from A to, let's say, L, attend Monday and Tuesday. All students that are, let's say, M through Z, attend Thursday and Friday. So they have 2 consecutive days of in-person instruction following a hybrid model. A hybrid model does not mean that the students that will be attending in person are going to be on their computer as if they were at home following an online model. An in-person instruction is hopefully the teacher engaging as traditionally as possible. Obviously, we don't want to lose the momentum of utilizing our Google Classrooms and the technology advancement that we've had for kids, the learning. So there might be some incorporation of, get on your computer, go onto your Google Classroom, look at this video, but the teacher will be directly instructing kids on a hybrid model for those that are in person. The teacher at the same time is going to have to manage those students that are online, and that's where it becomes extremely, extremely challenging. You all know that I have a task force for reopening schools, and that is composed of 3 different committees. We have the elementary, the high school, and the middle school. And just in discussion with our task force, the 2 concerns that are kind of the tiebreaker in how we continue a hybrid model is obviously whether we follow the A-B schedule the rotation schedule we have now. So some students are A days, they go to school on Monday and Thursday, and some kids are B day students and they go to school virtually with their teacher on Tuesdays and Fridays. So if we were to get approved on a hybrid model, either we follow that schedule where students are still now going to in-person. If you're an A-day student, you would go to school on your designated virtual day. That doesn't change. If you're a B student, then you go to school on your designated day, if that is a choice of the student and the family. The other option that has been presented to me is doing a change in the rotation of how kids are designated as A or B. So we can do A students would be all of the hybrid kids that would be attending in person. So anybody that chooses to attend in person would now be an A student, and anybody that chooses to be an online student can be now a B student. And that way, a teacher doesn't have to manipulate and teach both groups at the same time. Our schools and our committees obviously have different opinions, and I can honestly feel that there's not any a decision or consistency amongst what they would want. Staying on the A-B schedule, if we were to get approved for a hybrid, allows for schools to have more control of their class size numbers, because what they've done already, even before we started, was take their classes for the entire school population, and for a teacher, they divided as best as they could equally the class size. So if a teacher has 30 in a class, a second grade teacher 30, what they did is divide it up, 15 and 15. So 15 became A, 15 became B. At the high school, that's pretty much what they did. At the middle school, that's what they did. So obviously not every teacher has 30. Some may have 25, so you can have 12 and 13. So staying on the A and B rotation schedule on a hybrid model would allow the class size to be controlled as far as numbers are concerned, because you know that at any given time, you're not going to have more than, let's say, 12 kids that are A-day come to school if they choose to come to school. The reality of it will, and the reality that I'm seeing based on the numbers, is that many of our families will choose to stay at home. And so out of those 12 students that would have normally been in your class, on an A-day, maybe 3 of them are the ones that are going to show up to school. And then you're going to have, let's say, 9 online during an A day. On a B day, you may have 8 show up for in-person, and then you may have, another 9 online. And that's the makeup of one class. So your A plus your B number of students is a makeup of a teacher's class. That's protecting the class size numbers in the event that we are ever able to open up, whether it's a hybrid or whether it's a traditional setting ever, so that teachers could feel that they can social distance the desk, spread kids around, and be a little bit more comfortable about having kids in the classroom. The contrary to that is the switching of kids to make all the in-person kids A kids and all the B students the online kids. That, of course, would have to, change kids' schedules around. But what that allows is for teachers to concentrate on the two different groups individually at one time. So all my attention would be, on Mondays and Thursdays would still be to my in-person kids. I may have 10 kids in person that choose in person. I may have 15 that choose in person. And the rest of the kids would stay online, and then I would only focus on their online instruction. I would be virtually with them, engaging. And so that kind of separates the instruction piece of it and the challenge for a teacher. Some of our elementaries prefer to keep it the way it is or follow the same A and B rotation because they can control the numbers. Some of a couple other elementaries and the middle schools feel that doing a change in rotation between the hybrid kids and the online facilitates the learning for kids, because kids are, some of the feedback I did get was, are the kids that are going to show up to school going to get a better education than I am because I'm going to stay at home? And that is a valid concern that came from parents and kids, and you mentioned it right now. And so that plan would allow for teachers to equally dedicate 100% of their instruction and dedication to the in-person in kids 2 days a week, and 2 days a week to the online kids by themselves. And so is there a perfect way to do this? There's not. It is extremely challenging for our teachers, for our parents, and our students. Now, that's all on the hybrid model. We know that as far as the concerns that were put forth by our staff was academics was concerning over our distance learning plan. We know that some of their current issues were obviously students losing interest, parent and student excuses, online is not providing enough support, SPED students having difficulties, parental support, the students not logging in daily, poor attendance and turning in work, student engagement, participation, lack of interpersonal connections, and social and emotional well-being. And obviously the high number of student withdrawals that teachers have had, that was even a concern from teachers. The concerns on the hybrid model, of course, number one are the continuous spread of COVID and bringing more individuals into the school sites. Parents not taking this seriously and not committing to what we're asking of them. Please do not send your children to school sick. Please communicate with the school if there is any worry about a COVID member in the family that has possibly any symptoms or COVID. We cannot control what the parents do. I've asked, the staff has asked, they've sent communication to the parents, and I don't think we're ever going to win that battle. There will be parents that will just disregard this issue and still send kids to the school. The schools will be sending the kids back to the parents. We will try and call them and contact them. Every school has an isolation room that has been established at the school site, and that is different and aside from the school nurse's office, so that, we just have to assume that anybody with a symptom may have COVID, and that's how, health officials are telling us to deal with it. The other concern is obviously, if we have an outbreak or if we have more cases having to close a classroom or school due to an outbreak, all children that would follow the school protocols, the managing of the two groups at the same time in person and online, the amount of time online students will have to be on the computer if the instructional time is increased, because we did talk about possibly if we were to stay online, then our staff's recommendation would be that we need to increase the instructional time so that students are actively engaged more than the 2 days a week. And then obviously, the complexity of the whole teaching would cause teacher burnout. So those were some of the hybrid concerns. As far as the input I had from parents during the town hall meetings, I had a lot of questions about how it would work, if kids would go to school 2 days a week. So I explained that process of online instruction versus the in-person instruction. Parents that are already sending their children to the learning spaces, what that would look like would be that if the in-person instruction is approved, then those kids attending the learning spaces can go into the teacher's classroom now and get direct instruction from the teacher 2 days a week, and then the other 3 days a week they would still stay in the learning spaces. So the learning spaces will not go away even though a hybrid model would be approved. Because we have to have a space for them for their distance learning days. If we were to follow a hybrid plan, my recommendation would be that we do a phased-in approach. And a phased-in approach would allow, for example, on day one of hybrid, whether that be October the 26th, as we had intentionally planned, or moving it later to November 2nd, which is the following week, which would allow us 2 full weeks to prepare and work with the staff in whatever plan we decide. Week 1 would allow kinder and second grade students to be the first ones to attend school. So if we have 25 kids and from kinder to second in any school, those would be the 25 that would attend. 6th grade and 9th grade would also be the first ones that could go during week 1. During week 2, we'd include 3rd through 5th, 7th through 8th, 7th and 8th, and 10th through 12th grade students to start attending, just so that we easily welcome kids back and they address smaller groups at that time. By week 3, then obviously all schools would have all grades attending for those kids and parents that selected to attend. But I will tell you right now that a lot of parents are going to keep their kids at home. That the data shows it. Parents have expressed it. Students have commented on it. And so what I did at my town hall meeting is I had one in English and one in Spanish, and I asked parents that if they didn't remember what enrollment selection they had decided prior to opening, that they needed to contact their school. Because in the event that we do get approved, then the schools need to know and be prepared. How many kids should we be expecting coming in? And teachers need to know, okay, I have 5 kids showing up for hybrid versus all of a sudden I get 15. Or I get none versus all online. So I did ask parents. We do have that data initially from the enrollment form that was done by New Student Center. So all of our schools do have at least an expected number to work with right now. Obviously, there's still the fear is out there. So you discuss the whole health factor and where are we at right now with cases. And I just had a Cochise County Superintendent's meeting yesterday, and we meet once a week with Cochise County Health Department officials, and some of our local doctors are also in that group. The COVID-19 school benchmark that is put on by Arizona Department of Health is still showing, as of last Thursday, that gets updated every Thursday, still showing that Cochise can deliver the hybrid school model. There was only one county, Greenlee, that said in person. And so hybrid model, again, there's many variations, but hybrid means some kids in school, in person, and some kids at home. Also on part of the metrics says that for Cochise County, while we are given the green light on all 3 areas, 1A, it's decline in cases. It says that Cochise County did not meet. 2 consecutive weeks with perfect positivity below, we've met. And 3, 2 consecutive weeks with hospital visits for COVID-like illnesses in the region below 10%. So we've met that. In my meeting yesterday with our county superintendents and health officials, I did ask for an update on number of cases, and we have increased. And I did have the information right here. and that is for Cochise County. And so the Dr. Edward J. Miller, who is heading the COVID kind of task force for Copper Queen Associates, was part of my meeting, and he did share the same information as I have here, which was emailed to us today. And it says Cochise County didn't behave over the last week. We've gone from 45 active cases in the county to 85. Douglas has gone from 18 active cases to 43. We have been averaging about 25 cases in the county per week for the past 5 weeks, but just had 47 cases last week. Please continue to wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your social distance. As a reminder, and this was more for his staff, masks are required by all employees. So this information was just shared with us yesterday and sent to us by email today. So that's the most current data as far as cases. Now, 85 cases county-wide and 43 here in Douglas. I also did extensive research because obviously a concern of ours that was highly discussed by Mr. Soto and I believe Mrs. Cox was the enrollment. We've lost a lot of kids. And we are not the only district that has lost a lot of kids. I spent a good amount of time on Friday speaking to many superintendents in Tucson and Phoenix, in Sierra Vista, and around the county. And some districts, I will say Sahuarita, for example, who is comparable to more or less, they have a few more kids than us. But Manny Valenzuela, the superintendent, and I chatted on Sunday, and they've lost 600 kids. And so we had an extensive discussion about, how their teachers are doing it. And so the districts that are already back, and there's many in Arizona that have gone back traditional 5 days a week with the option of keeping kids at home if they choose to. We've had many following a hybrid model, whether it's going to school for in-person Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Friday like we are. All of our Cochise County schools are already open and welcoming kids for either a traditional setting or hybrid, all of the Cochise County schools. So I got that information, and I really wanted to know how they were, what kind of a hybrid plan were they following. And I got a variation. So we have many of the districts that that are doing what we may end up doing, which is following that A and B rotation, where you can control the smaller class sizes, and teachers are having to teach both sets of kids all simultaneously. So you have 5 in person and 20 online, or you may have 15 in person and 5 online. Other districts are doing in the morning, you have the online kids, and in the afternoon, you have the in-person kids, or vice versa. Other districts have pulled many of their teachers to become the online teacher and left the rest of the teachers to be the in-person teacher. So there was a lot of shifting of teachers around in order to make that happen. And then obviously the districts that probably have better financial resources or had already an online school approved simply put their kids online there, and those that are attending hybrid go to the school in person. But most districts are doing where the teachers are teaching simultaneously both group of kids. Some districts are just getting started after fall break. A lot of the districts were on fall break this year, and how they manipulated that was that they're going to have to stay a little bit longer at the end of the year to make up the 180 instructional days. So, it's a lot of information, and I know that we need to, the board needs to make a decision as to how we move forward, whether it's to stay online or go to hybrid.
All right, I'm going to open it up to the boards for reaction. And by the way, that's a lot of information. That's a lot to digest. We've got an awkward dilemma, and each one of us as board members is going to have to make a decision, I would think, based on our own personal analysis, our own personal experience, and how we feel would be the best way to go. my point of reference, as all of yours will probably be different, is I'm a former teacher, I'm a former building administrator, I'm a former superintendent, now I'm a board member. And I have a lot of concerns regarding everything. We have to look at it administratively because of the monies and because of the personnel and all the things that are involved at that level. We have to look at it politically, and when I say politically, I mean the way it affects the community and the way people are reacting and the information I'm getting, and I got a lot last week, a lot of information, and it's all over the board. And the other one is academically. We have to analyze it academically as board members. So we have the students to consider, we have the parents to consider, we have the teachers and the classified. And we have to somehow symbiotically bring that all together with a viable solution. And it's not an easy one. Even in her presentation, it's confusing. It's confusing to parents, being lay people as far as education is concerned, not knowing exactly what all of that meant. It's confusing to teachers. I spoke to a lot of teachers the last couple of days, and I can tell you that overwhelmingly they want to stay online. They don't, and Anna knows that.
Yes.
The survey shows that. They have become accustomed to doing what they're doing, and it took a lot of adjustment, and it took a lot of work on their part, and some of them are working doubly hard, all of them are, and they're taking it home, and it's affecting them. But our question is, are we going to contrast the health and safety and well-being of a student and our staff in trying to accomplish our mission of educating these kids? And unfortunately, that's the awkward dilemma we have now, and we're all going to be influenced by different variables. I'll tell you personally, from what I know, from what I heard here today, and just thinking about it constantly, I'm totally in favor of leaving it online. I personally don't want to take the risk of the health and welfare of bringing all those students back and having, unfortunately, something happen and it break out and we say, well, we found out, now we're going to have to go back to the other. I just don't want to go there personally. So with that, I'm going to leave it, and that has nothing to do with your recommendation, Anna, my personal feeling. But that's the way I feel. And I've looked at it over and over, and I listened carefully. We're getting into the flu season again. And according to all of the news reports, this thing isn't going away. And in fact, they're fearful it's going to get worse. So let me open it up to the board for comments, reaction, or to Anna's report, or anything you feel appropriate regarding the item on the agenda. You want to start, Mitch?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. Ms. Amaniego, I really liked your analysis and very in-depth. We always appreciate that. I do have the same information from Dr. Miller that you had, and unfortunately that shows that we're on the increase, and that's a bad thing.
Yes.
And I really don't want to take any chances with that, and I don't think we can. Although I've talked to a lot of people that I run into, and they all say that we're in a routine now. Let's stay online, and let's just finish out until hopefully the virus, gets under control and all the things at some point in the future. I did read a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a week ago in the Star, that they had DUSD said that they were going to hold off on any of their in-person hybrid until, November.
Yeah, they're waiting, I think, after there's a holiday, Veterans?
I think it was after Veterans Day.
Yeah.
But then my question would be, well, what's the point then? Because then you have Thanksgiving, and then all of a sudden there's Christmas, and so just leave it. So that would be my feeling. Let's just continue online. I think the kids that are doing well are the ones that are going to do well. The other ones, as I mentioned, if you could advertise more that they can come to the learning spaces, and if they're feeling they're falling behind, maybe that's what they need to do without going through the whole hybrid, So that'd be my thoughts. Thank you.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes. Well, I take the opposite view. Mr. Lindemann says about learning spaces, but they're not teaching spaces. They're spaces where the children that need to be sent to school are sent. Nothing else. There's no instruction because it's being done by a teaching associate or assistant. The idea that, and I didn't know this until you were just talking about it, is that right now in distance learning, we're only teaching them 2 days a week. Not 5, not 4.5, not even 4, 2 days a week. The people that tell you, the parents, that I want it to stay virtual, are they willing to take the lack of education for their children? And if the metrics are such, are they willing to take the failure where the child has to repeat? How are you going to test the children in what they're learning? Somebody's going to have to make that decision. Somebody's going to have to make that decision of who passes and who doesn't. And if you have children that are not logging on, that are just doing assignments, then they are not learning. They are not learning. And you're going to have seniors that are going to be applying to college, probably some very prestigious ones, and they're going to go with a lack of education, with a lack of preparation. So I do not understand why, and this nurse's letter, she says the failure of the vaccines. They're not failures. They're just going to the testing process the way it should be. But they're not failures of the vaccine. Nobody has said that. They just said that they had a situation that came up in their testing. Now, if we go to hybrid, and she made the statement about the kids don't know how to use their mask, they're sent ill or stuff like that, then we have to have protocols that are going to, where we are going to be able to measure what that student is feeling. Whether we take a temperature, whether we ask a question, whether there has been somebody in their house that is sick, all those things are part of the protocols. And so if somebody is tested positive, an adult in the house, then that has to be appropriately talked to. You as a superintendent need to say, any adult in the household that is feeling sick or stuff like that, do not send your kid to school. Do not. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows about wearing a mask. Now, if they're not wearing it correctly, and the nurse says, well, I have to teach them how, that's her job. Her job is to keep the children healthy. And if she has to be the one that tells the student, you have to wear the mask this way, then that's fine. That's her job. But the teacher or the staff of that school needs to also be aware of what those protocols are. My reasoning for wanting to go to hybrid is I am afraid of the lack of education that we're giving our children. Mr. Lindemann just said, the ones that are doing well are going to do well. And the ones that aren't, sorry, we don't care. Because we're going to keep you at home. So, I am for opening up, and I think that we can do this safely. Now, you mentioned that in your meeting that you had an uptick of cases, but you just say numbers. You don't say
Yes.
the demographics of it.
No, and that's all that was shared with
Yeah,
us.
sure.
That's it.
So in other words, of the uptick in the number of cases, were they adults? How many were children? How many were teenagers? We don't have that data, see? And the data is lacking. And it's lacking in the county. One thing that I am grateful for to the county health department is that we had a situation where I won't say the situation, but this one little boy tested positive. And the health department was there to interview all those people that had been around him, how much contact time they had with him, who he had been in contact with as far as outside that situation, what his parents had been in contact with. So that for that, I'm glad that the county health department is doing this, you know. But here again, I think that they should give us the demographics of the increase in the cases. So with that, that's it.
And if I may answer or clarify some things that either Mr. Lindeman or Dr. Gomez said. So one thing that I want to clarify are the learning spaces, just so that we all have a better understanding. And I know that I gave a lot of information, and even after almost 9 weeks of being online and following an A-B rotation, people still sometimes are confused. So the learning spaces, which I am all in favor of providing more spaces for those families that need to send children. The difficulty in that part is obviously having the additional extra staff to provide the supervision, as Dr. Ed said, because we currently are having our classified staff that are monitoring and assisting those kids while they are being instructed by their teachers online. So there is, I wanted to clarify, there is instruction for these kids that are attending online, attending the learning space. They are getting 2 days a week with virtual instruction by their teacher as the kids that are at home, and then 3 days a week they are getting assignments and instruction via the distance learning assignments and projects and things that they have. So we are fully open 5 days a week. Class attendance is being recorded 5 days a week. Instruction is happening 5 days a week. The variation to the instruction is definitely that 2 days a week, the instruction is by the teacher with their class, and the other 3 days a week, the instruction is happening via the asynchronous learning, which is assignments being left, videos, projects, group projects, conversations, essays or whatever. So there is instruction happening every day. It's just not physically there with the teacher every day. So that's one clarification. If we were to start a hybrid plan, Dr. Ed and everybody, unfortunately, if we want to reduce class sizes and avoid as much of the contact between students, the proposed hybrid model that all districts are following is only having kids attend in person no more than, some districts are no more than 3 days. So some of them are doing it 3 days a week with the in-person and 2 days a week staying at home online. So even following a hybrid model, the in-person kids are not going to be with their teacher 5 days a week, because we have A days and we have B days. We have A day students and B days, and that will reduce the class sizes.
Let me go to the rest of the board, and then
Okay.
you can definitely summarize and answer all the questions or
Okay.
respond to any concerns that any board member said. But let's get all the board
Okay.
comments first. Mr. Ramos.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Gomez on the academics and learning of our students. But I'm also very concerned on the health and welfare of our students, their family, our teachers, staff. And the academics and learning is so important. that sacrifice to bring them back to a hybrid, to me, is just too risky, too high at this time. I made my decision as of last week, and I would prefer to stay online.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Mr. Sabal?
No, I agree. I think staying online is the correct way of going.
All right, now, Anna, you can go ahead and finish. Nothing related specifically to Mr. Ramos or Sabal, but you can continue going with them because
No.
now we have all of the comments by the
Yes,
board and the
so I
reactions.
discussed learning spaces. I have instructed the admin that if there are families that have asked to, that they need a space for their child, to try to accommodate them as best as possible, find a space and bring those kids in, because those are families that need that support. So as I was saying, the hybrid model or online model would still be the same as the 2 days of instruction. But if the decision is to stay online, because I have a huge concern about the academics, just as Dr. Ed said, then we will be increasing the instructional time to 4 days a week, and extending for the middle school, extending their instructional time. Each period will be at least 10 minutes longer. The students will be meeting with their teachers virtually, because all of the kids will be online 4 days a week. And then on that Wednesday, it doesn't mean that there's no instruction. It just means that they're going to be left assignments to complete online, and they have to go in and do their attendance. For the high school, we will figure out a way. Their schedule is a little bit more complicated, but over and over again, I heard from some students that the 6-week courses is not enough time, so they will also be increasing the instructional time for the high school kids, so that the kids have an opportunity to meet their teachers more often as well. So we will do what is asked of us. I gave you my recommendation, and like Mr. Brain says, once you're a teacher, you know what your call is. This virus is not going to go away for a while. I'm a believer that we need to learn how to live with it. And of course, the education of the kids is super important for me, with all the things that I've already addressed. Our staff is prepared to do either or. They're troopers. Obviously, we have the data that, they prefer to go online, stay online, and we'll take direction from the board.
Yeah, Mr. President, if I can also clarify a statement that I heard. Dr. Gomez alluded to the point that I don't care. Well, certainly I care about the education of the students, but safety is paramount. And in my view, without safety, what comes next? Nothing. And so I truly believe that, you can lead a horse to water, but, you can't make him drink. So I do care about the education of the students. That's paramount. Thank you.
Mr. Brain, if I may, before a decision is made, we did discuss, at least in the survey results and in my own professional opinion, is that for the first quarter, we did allow teachers to teach from home. And that was apparent in the staff survey that was an indicator that they said, then I think all teachers need to teach from site. So whatever decision that be, I think that, all teachers should be on site if they're not going to be having their kids.
Obviously,
Yes, yeah.
with the comments from the board, it's realized and recognized that we have a conundrum as far as having again to contrast the well-being of the student and our staff along with their academics. I think every one of us on this board knows, and Mr. Ramos made the statement, how important it is. Dr. Red really emphasized it about the academics, and we're all very, very cognizant of that. But I'll tell you, if we had, and I just this morning, one of the university football teams, they reported 19 cases this morning, and they had been very, very diligent. And I know we're doing with our athletics, and I know we're being very diligent. But when we bring the masses back and we expose our teachers to something like the nurse mentioned, that the parent, and I think one of the school personnel told me yesterday or the day before that they had somebody at the high school that that was sent to school sick, and they had to deal with that and send them home. So why, in my way of thinking, why even run that risk? And I don't want parents to have to feel like, well, if everybody's going to school and I'm apprehensive about it, I'm going to have to send my kid. I just don't think we should put the burdens on this board. We're the ones that's got the onus right now. We're the one that's going to make the decision. And I personally think the way I vote, and for the comments I made earlier, I strongly am an advocate of doing what I said, and feel very strongly about it because of all my my points of reference. So I do want to say this, that based on, and I mentioned it earlier, you know, we've got the administrative, the political, the academic, all those considerations, but administratively, I would think that you, as the chief executive officer of the district, would have the latitude to be able to do the variation of the online and do it in collaboration, which I know you do. I know you're constantly working on this, but the teachers need to be heard. They absolutely need to be heard. They're in the front line there. They have that dilemma of if all these kids come and that kid takes his mask off, am I going to go over there and confront him? Those teachers were 67%, I believe, wanted to stay online, and the ones that I talked to were 100%. So you use a variation of what you heard here today, and Dr. Ed's concerned about, and mine as well, and Mr. Lindeman's as well, and Mr. Ramos. More instruction, if you can get it. But we've got a plan that's in motion now. They've been working on it for almost 6 months now, since.
Yeah, well, since the school closure, we've been on since March.
Yeah, so why throw them into a dilemma of having to start a brand new process, different preparations, having to have teachers trying to work with kids sitting in the classroom and then sitting online? I think that we'll reach hopefully a viable solution here today, and one that'll work for everybody. And to the parents, I hope that they know that this board and administration is seriously taking their concerns over, and that we're being guardians of their children, and I hope they feel that we made the right decision. So I don't know how you want to handle this.
Mr. President.
I don't know that we need a motion, but unless someone wants to make a motion to, go ahead, Dr. Gomez.
No, I think we should call the question.
Okay, yeah, well, or we leave it like it is, but go ahead. I'll entertain a motion from.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I'll make the motion that I believe that we should continue our routine online as we are doing, and if the administration feels that they can find some more time for instruction, that we could add that on.
I second the motion.
Second by Mr. Sabal. I want to make it clear, the motion's clear. I think what he's saying is what I was saying about giving you the opportunity to change any one of the instructional methods, whether it's more time or whatever. Administratively, you have the authority to do that. So we have a motion on the floor. Discussion. No discussion. Call for the motion is to continue with the authority of the superintendent to do anything she feels or deems feasible, to adding instruction or anything else that would be considered a positive measure. Online.
Is that including having teachers now work on site? I want that direction.
That's going to be
That's-
that's going to be up to you. I think that the basic premise is that when we were talking about it, that we were gonna continue the way we were.
Okay.
You are allowing some teachers to still stay at home, right?
That was the, that's
The
what we
original.
allowed, from the original plan.
But then that's administratively a decision you make based on every individual case. And I don't know if that's gonna cause you a problem or not, but, and of course, you work in conjunction with your building principals. I mean, obviously, you'll do that. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
No.
Mr. Bering?
Yes. It's something that's an adjunct to this that we need to definitely, and it's appropriate because it's talking about attendance. How the athletics are still in that mode that the board approved a week ago, right?
Yes, we're still on winter's sports at DHS, and I have been approached by our athletic director as the winter sports season is about to also get started according to all the AIA schedules. So I may need to come back to the board so that we can initiate at least the phase 1 and phase 2, which are the practice for the winter sports. But everything is on point.
Okay. I guess that was the last item.
I have a question, Mr. President.
Dr. Gomez.
Well, if you kind of put the onus on the superintendent, would it be better, like if I made the motion that all teachers should be on site?
You could make that motion, but then it should have been an amendment to the original motion coming back because that was part of the instruction. If you wanted to make a motion to have all the teachers be back on site, I guess that would fall within the purview of the agenda item because we are discussing instruction, whether it's still distance or hybrid. So that would fall in there. So
Well, I'm just thinking because of the statement that you made that you thought if the superintendent would has the ability to decide those things, but you said, is it going to be a little, too much for you to be able to do? So
Well,
that's why I said.
I think originally the board vested in her the authority to be able to make the decision based on individual cases, correct? Isn't that the way we did it originally?
Yes.
And the administration, in collaboration with the principals and anybody, department heads or whoever, they would make that individual decision. That's part of her job. I don't think the board needs to do that, but if you want to make a motion, Dr.
No,
Ed,
that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to know that if she wants to have those teachers on site, she can say.
right? But how do you feel about that? Do you feel that you can proceed with that latitude that you've been given to make that decision, or do you want the board to say that all teachers have to be on site? I don't know if the
No,
board
I
will
mean,
go along with that.
if I have that authority, it's just that when we initiated our online plan, that was a board, I guess, direction that teachers would have that opportunity
Right.
on a case-by-case basis,
Right.
which is then we went to Plan B, allowing teachers to have that opportunity. I feel personally that if we're not going to have kids in their classrooms and we are following all the protocols in place, that all teachers should report to work on site and teach from their classroom.
Well, let me ask you this. How did the building principals feel about that?
You know what, we really, that part we haven't really discussed as far as what they personally or professionally feel. But we do have, obviously, some staff that has circumstances or medical conditions that are more alarming than others. And so I can definitely take that into consideration and say, okay, looking at the, let's say, 20 teachers that are teaching at home right now from each site, for various reasons. Which ones are the ones that really have a severe condition or medical condition more so than I need to be at home? Because let's say I don't have anybody to stay home with my children, then that would be a different case. So I can certainly work with the principals and look at the number of teachers that are teaching from home and then take a look at that, because the approval form that they received did have a specified date, which was through October the 23rd. That's the form that was given to us by the trust, and that's the form that all the districts used to allow teachers to work from home from a certain time period. So we can definitely take a look at that each individual case and either extend it or not.
I was going to comment as well that because of all of the cooperation of the board, that we could meet weekly or every 2 weeks and see what the progress is and see how things are moving, because we didn't put a finite date. We didn't say this is going to be till
Yes.
Thanksgiving or Christmas. We're just letting it ride. So, board members, would you be amenable to meeting every week
Yeah,
to
that
see
would
how
be fine.
things are going? And then we get an assessment from the superintendent, and if she feels that there's some reason to change and the reasons are backed up and substantiated by whatever the information she gives us, then we can address it at that time. And at the same time, if we meet next week, unless she wants it now, we could also have on the agenda, we could make it the mandate by the board that all teachers be on campus. Give you enough time to speak to your principals and see what they say.
Can do that.
But we know that that's going to create another dimension, another negative dimension. Not for us, we'd have to address it, but for the teachers, it would be another controversial item that is going to say now, and then we'll start getting the phone calls and people contacting us again. But that's fine. That's why we're sitting up here. How do you want to do that? Anna, how do you
Sure.
want
I mean, we could meet next week. We have a board meeting not till the 2nd, Alma?
November 4th.
November 4th. So that's at least 3 weeks away. We can, I can schedule something for next week or 2 weeks from now and see how things are going.
Why don't we do it next week, and
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Let's let it settle in, and let's see what the reaction is, and then we will set up tentatively. How about a meeting for next Wednesday at the same time? And Anna, you can give us an update, and the item would be the same, also with the ability for the board to make a decision, okay? It won't be just for discussion, it'll be discussion, decision, based on whatever, if one is needed. Is that okay with you, Dr. Ed? Because
That's
you're
fine.
the dissenting vote, and I feel the same way, but I just can't, it's tough with the health, and, anyway. Is that okay with you,
Yes,
Anna?
that is okay. And I am committed to increasing the instructional time. I mean, that was my number one goal from the beginning, and I knew that it could go either way. So I will tell you that our principals are prepared, our task force is prepared and committed to improve the instruction, because you deserve it and every child deserves it. So we'll do what we need to do.
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn
I move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindeman,
So moved.
by
Mr. Sabah.
Mr. Sabal. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, board
Aye.
members.